Morning.
Or should I say afternoon? It is now 12 noon. Everyone today.
Good.
Doing well.
Thank you. Very well.
So we will call the March 11th Board of Directors work session for MARTA to order. At this time, Ms. Huff, would you call the roll, please?
Ma'am. Roberta Abdul Salam. Robert Ash.
Here.
Stacy Blakely.
Present.
Jim Durrett.
I'm here.
William Floyd.
I'm here.
Roderick Frierson.
Present.
Brian Glover. Rita Hardage. Russell McMurray. Al Pond.
Present.
Catherine Powers.
Present.
Rita Scott.
Present.
Reginald Snyder. Christopher Tomlinson. Thomas Worthy. Madam Chair, there are 8 board members present.
Does that include Roberta, who I see?
No, it does not.
Mi-
She's on, okay,
Ms. Huff, I apologize. It's Frida. I couldn't unmute, but I'm here.
okay. 10 board members present.
Thank you, Ms. Huff. At this time, may I have a motion to approve the minutes for the February 11th, 2021 work session?
So moved. This is Katie Powers. Move that we approve the minutes.
Frida Hardage, seconds.
Second.
Thank you. Is there anyone that will abstain from the vote, or is there any no votes? Hearing none, the motion for approval of the February 11th, 2021 work session minutes has passed. So at this time, under our chair's report, in our executive session and in our previous board meetings, we discussed, as it was recommended by Ms. Abdul Salam, to re-look at the election process for board members. So I want to open the discussion at this time among the board members. Is there anyone that would like, I'm trying to look to make sure that we can raise our hands, or if there's anyone that would like to add to this discussion. Ms. Abdul Salam, would you open this discussion, please?
I'm not
Hello?
sure if she can unmute. I don't see her on here now, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Okay, there she is.
Okay. Would any other board member, since it seems as if though there is a difficulty in hearing, or Ms. Abdul Salam contributing? What was concerning?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this is Rod. So let me kind of share with you my thoughts on it. It's my understanding that when there's a decision concerning which jurisdiction will be in line for the next chair, it has somewhat in an arbitrary way been determined by the board members that it moves between different jurisdictions. And I think there was some concern.
I must be having problems hearing him.
All right. There was
I
how we
can't
can
hear
do that
him.
equitable way.
Oh, hold on just a moment, Ms.
No,
Bryson.
hold on a
Ms.
second.
Abdul, we can hear
Let
you.
me see.
Are you on it seems that you're on the phone with technical support.
It's not muted.
Can you mute your computer?
Yeah, Rita, the problem I think is she just muted her computer. I don't know if she's got the volume turned up on her computer, and she may need to log off and log back in, which has happened to me before.
Okay, so she seems to be on the phone with someone. So whomever is on the phone with her, can you give her that suggestion?
Yes, we will. Tyrene is on the phone with her.
Great, thank you. Mr. Bryson, would you continue, please?
Yes. So what is an equitable way for the chair to be considered as it moves between all the various jurisdictions? One way to consider it is for us to just put it in some form of rotation calendar that says we'll do it this way, A, B, C, and D. And then what happens if one of the jurisdictions decides not to do it, then we can do it in a different way. But I want to make sure that we address the concern, because we don't have it in anywhere written on how we do it. But I still think it's important to have some flexibility, because maybe one of the jurisdictions may not be in a position to want to serve as chair and then just want to let another jurisdiction have it. So I think that's what we have been doing, is just kind of talking among each other and working through it that way. But I'm open to any way we want to do it, as long as we all feel like it's done in the right way and everyone has had a voice in it.
So let me add, everyone should have received a list of the Board of Directors board chair from 1994 to the present. Did everyone receive that in their board packet?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, is there any other board member that would like to add to this discussion, please?
Madam Chair, this is Bill Floyd.
Yes,
And
Mr. Floyd.
I would question the need for this and the reason behind it, and I'm not sure that it's, I agree 100% with Rod. It's got to be some flexibility in the way you do this. So I'm questioning the need to do this. I have not sensed that or seen it. I don't think it's out of place to consider a non-rigid rotation of the chair, but I think to try to set it up on some sort of formal rotation would be a mistake. So I'm opposed to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Floyd.
Madam Chair, this is Thomas.
Hi, hello, Mr. Worthy.
Hey, good morning. Sorry, I had some difficulties dialing in. The only thing I wanted to add to this discussion is keeping in mind a gubernatorial appointment onto the board is very new. And I want to start with this. I want to preface this by saying I have no interest in serving as board chair ever during my term. I love my service on the board. I asked to be reappointed when they asked me if I was interested. I care about this, but I don't have the time at this point in my career to devote to MARTA, so it wouldn't be fair. So I want to preface that I'm just pointing this out from a government relations standpoint, not from a personal desire standpoint. But, you know, from my perspective, if the legislature wanted us to have a formal rotation of the chair, they could have put that in the legislation. I think it's good internal politics among our jurisdictions to have some sort of formal rotation as the chair. And I think it's a fruitful discussion to do that internally as a board. I think that if we can't reach an agreement, I'm a little afraid the legislature might do it for us, and I do not want that to happen. So I think that this discussion is very important and fruitful, but I also think that gubernatorial appointees beyond me may need to be considered within the rotation, because there is a reason why the legislature decided to have kind of a statewide viewpoint on this board. Now I'm a resident of Atlanta. And there is a reason why they said that the gubernatorial appointee must live in one of the jurisdictions. But I do think it was the legislature's idea to add a new appointee, not the governor's idea. And I think that any discussion with a chair rotation should include the seat that I hold, even though I don't particularly want it to include me, if that makes sense.
Any other board members?
I'm happy to chime in.
Please, thank you.
So when I came on the board 11 or so years ago, there was an unwritten understanding that board members would elect a chairperson who would serve a 2-year term, and that there was courtesy to consider a rotation among the jurisdictions. We tried to follow that, but we made sure that the circumstances in which we were operating were considered. And we always thought, does it make sense for it to be a 2-year period, or should it be longer? And for instance, Robbie Ash served for longer than 2 years because of the period in which he was doing his work and the respect that the organization was gaining, both from him serving in that role as well as bringing Keith Parker in. So it made sense to continue going in that way. I believe it is not a good idea to prescribe that we do rotate, but that we seek to do so if circumstances dictate that that is the best for the organization. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Any other board members?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Al Pond, I agree. I think it's very important to have flexibility. There could be a reason that you have to change the chair after 1 year or extend the chair for 3 years. And it has worked well. I think we have had this understanding the right thing to do is rotate the chair between jurisdictions. But I think trying to set up something very rigid would be the wrong thing to do, because it's important that we have flexibility, and it's the board's responsibility to put the best person in the seat every year that's appropriate with all the other factors. So I think it works fine the way we have it. I would oppose any changes.
Thank you, Mr. Pond.
Madam Chair,
Madam Chair,
this is Ms. Hardage.
Yes, Ms. Hardage.
I just wanted to say that I agree with both what Jim and Mr. Pond just said. I feel like that we do need flexibility in a nice and concerted effort to make sure that all of our jurisdictions are represented. But I don't think anything more formal than that, it would be required at this time. And I too agree that I would not vote for that.
Thank you, Ms. Hardage. Mr. Abdul Salam, I believe you have been able to rejoin us and be heard.
I think so.
Yes, I hear you. Great.
Okay. Yes, my concern is still in a day and age where equity is such a big problem, intentional or non-intentional, it still happens. And I think that today is an example of just that. If you don't have the voice to sway, you don't get the opportunity. There is only this issue that we don't want to have codified or written down in any way. And I'm wondering why. For everything else, you want a policy. For everything else, we want to have it written down. We want to have it committed to paper. Why not this? And I will leave it at that.
Thank you, Ms. Abdul Salam. Is there any other board members that have not been heard that would like to speak to this issue?
Madam Chair, this is Stacy Blakely.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Blakely.
Good morning. I support a hybrid. I believe, just looking at the board chairs from 1994 until present, and I do represent Fulton County. However, there seems to have never been a chair from Clayton County. And again, to the equity perspective, and even from the outside, it would appear that Clayton County has not been given the opportunity to lead our organization. And I'm not saying that, you know, the people haven't been qualified or there's been any type of what's the word I'm looking for? Any type of division in that. But we want to make sure that we are, and that we are fair, that all the entities that are contributing to making this organization the great organization that it is, that we all are represented. In the event that a term needs to be extended, let's do have flexibility in the language for that. But I do think it's important that we do have all entities represented and have the opportunity to be board chairs.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
This is
I'm sorry. Who is speaking?
This is Thomas Worthy again.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Worthy.
Thank you, ma'am. I really want to kind of echo my support of what Ms. Blakely had to say. I certainly respect, you know, Mr. Pond and Mayor Floyd and Mr. Durrett and Ms. Hartage's remarks, and I think that there's merit in those. I also certainly understand where Ms. Abdul Salam is coming from, and I think a hybrid model might be a good one. In my perspective from that is anytime we're talked about at the General Assembly, it has the opportunity to go off the rails. And if we don't figure out a way to do something that makes us come together as an inclusive unit and make us agree on this, I'm worried that the General Assembly is going to do it for us, and that scares me.
Thank you, Mr. Worthy. Are there any other board members that would like to speak to this issue? Hearing none. A couple of things I would like to add, and that is in doing and looking at the bylaws, and I'm sure has everyone had an opportunity to look at the bylaws? The MARTA bylaws does not address rotation. It does not speak for it or against it. It is not a part of the bylaws. I think what is acceptable is the past practice having been to rotate the chairmanship with the jurisdictions that were part of MARTA at each time. For instance, if you look at the list of the board chairs from 1994 until the present, I certainly understand, and I want to speak to each concern by each board member for myself. And that is when I look at the fact that Clayton actually appointed members 115 of 2015. So we would look at board chairs from 2015 in fairness to rotation. We would look at 2015 to the present. And I think we did have a discussion at the previous election just as to where we were in the rotation as to what was fair and where we were. And that's how we came to it had been decided even prior to my joining the board that the rotation would fall within DeKalb County based upon the actual rotation process. And the next chair would fall within the jurisdiction of Clayton County. I also think we need to be aware that we're attempting to reach out to other jurisdictions in support of mass transit and MARTA. So we have to be aware that they also will expect a seat within the jurisdiction for chairmanship. So what I'd like to do is at this time, the issue would be whether or not we amend the bylaws, or also I would like to hear, if you all don't mind, from the hybrids, what would be your suggestion, Mr. Worthy and Ms. Fulton County, for the hybrid point?
To be candid, to be candid and trustworthy with my board members, I haven't thought that much about it. I think flexibility is important because I do think that there are times that it is beneficial to the organization with large projects or with bringing on a new general manager that terms may need to be extended beyond 2 years. I think that I think that a bylaws change probably is a good path, but it needs to be written very carefully so that flexibility is allowed, where we are not binding the board to a rigid system, a future board into a rigid system that we're not members of. So I'm more than happy to kind of work with Ms. Blakely and come up with a proposal on that for your consideration. I just, to be completely honest, don't want to waste people's time and tell you that I've thought more about it than today.
Ms. Blakely,
Madam Chair.
hold just 1 second, Ms. Abdul Salam. I will return to you. I just wanted to address the hybrid suggestion. Ms. Blakely?
Yes, ma'am. So I support his sentiments wholeheartedly. I too have yet to think through that, but I would definitely be more than willing to work with him outside of this meeting to come up with that.
Thank you, Ms. Blakely. Ms. Abdul Salam?
Yes, one of the things that I must say is that there was no expectation, at least on my part, that we would actually vote on this or take action on this today. It was to be a discussion today. So I don't think that it's reasonable to expect us to come out with a solution today. In my due diligence, what I have done is look at some of the policies of other corporations and nonprofit corporations to this matter. There's nothing extremely unusual about it at all. It just seems to be that when it comes to Roberta Abdul Salam, you have to make an exception. And the exception is not necessary. I mean, for example, just this conversation right now, 2 minutes ago, I would love to be a part of that conversation for a hybrid, conversation. But again, I'm not considered to be a part of that. I guess at some point you have to start realizing that it may be something bigger and broader than what it actually is. And I keep talking equity, which I will continue to do so. But the process and how you arrive at that is an important process. So I mean, I don't expect us to come out with a solution today. I didn't think that that's what we were going to do. And again, if there's going to be further discussion, I would love to be a part of that discussion since I kind of sort of started the discussion. One of the things that I noticed, excuse me, in some of the other policies that I've been looking at is that there is nothing wrong with changing as you need to change. And I think that's universal. So that's all I have to say.
And actually, Ms. Abdul Salam, the reason why the two that I asked about hybrid, because they're the only two that mentioned the word hybrid. So what
what I've been saying all along is that there needs to be a change in it. I mean, hybrid may not be the only word that you can use for that, but certainly change is what I'm looking for, and a change would be.
Right, and I agree that we should always strive to evolve, but I wanted to explain the reason why I use those two is because they use that specific suggestion, and what my next suggestion was going to be that we actually have someone, if we decide to create an ad hoc committee to look at what would be fair and equitable and how we can modify or contribute to what needs to be done to make sure that there is equity, that we have someone from each jurisdiction participate in bringing that back to the board. And because Mr. Worthy was from Atlanta, Ms. Blakely is from Fulton, who are both, and you also just volunteered, if we could look at someone from DeKalb. And of course, Mr. Worthy, we could still accept someone from Atlanta, as Mr. Worthy is the governor's appointee. But I would ask someone to put that in a motion, if that's acceptable to the board.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I will second. Ms. Katie Powers.
Thank you, Ms. Powers. Are there any board members that would like to abstain from this motion or who would like to vote no on the motion?
Madam Chair, this is Robbie Ash. Could we be clear about what this motion is? Candidly, I'm not sure what we're being asked to vote on.
The motion that I made was for there to be established an ad hoc committee to come up with the representation for what it is that we want to do.
The suggestion, Mr. Ash, is an ad hoc committee to come back with either a suggestion or not on amending or looking at the bylaws to make sure that there is something fair and equitable in jurisdictional rotation. So that ad hoc committee would come back and they would work together and come back with the recommendation. Is that correct, Ms. Abdul Salam? Was that the suggestion?
Yes, ma'am.
So the question is,
As a,
does the board, it was motioned and properly second. And so now we've had discussion. Is there any other discussion on the motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, Alpon, I'm fine with that. I would just suggest as chair that you have the authority, I think, to go ahead and set up an ad hoc committee to explore any of these things. I'm not sure this is board action, but if you feel like that's the best way to go, I support that.
And Mr. Pond, if I may, this is Liz. I do want to say that I agree with what Mr. Pond has said, that you have that ability, Madam Chair, but because this was not a matter that was noticed for action, I think that it would be best if you exercise your prerogative and establish this ad hoc committee, because we have not noticed this action for a formal vote.
So as the chair, what you're saying, Ms. O'Neill, is that the chair has the ability to establish the ad hoc committee?
Yes, ma'am.
Great, thank you.
Well,
the ad hoc committee is established. We have volunteers from, I believe it's Fulton. Mr. Worthy, the governor appointee. Is there anyone that would volunteer from DeKalb? We have Ms. Roberta Abdul Salam from Clayton. So may I have a volunteer from DeKalb and City of Atlanta? Do I hear any volunteers from DeKalb?
Madam Chair, do you have to have a representative from each, this? I mean, can't it just be done with the group that has
And
brought
can be
forth the
done with the
recommendation?
group as it is, but I wanted to
Okay.
make it fair for every
Right,
jurisdiction
sure.
to participate.
Right, that's understandable.
Don't have a volunteer from DeKalb, then DeKalb chooses not to participate in that ad hoc committee.
Okay,
Hearing none? Hearing none?
Rita, I'll do it. Jim.
Oh, hi. Okay, thanks, Jim. So we have Mr. Durrett from DeKalb, City of Atlanta. City of Atlanta. City of Atlanta. Okay, well, Mr. Worthy, since you live in Atlanta and you're the governor appointee, we call you twofold. How about that?
Yes, Madam Chair, that works for me.
Thank you. So under the chair's report, we will establish the ad hoc committee with the volunteers that have volunteered. And outside of this meeting, we will set up a meeting for our first meeting and report back. Thank you.
Hey, Rita, I would suggest that after today, you identify the person that you'd like to have chair that committee, because it needs to have somebody that's going to keep it going.
Thank you. I will. Thanks for that suggestion. Okay, at this time, we'll have the report from the general manager.
Thank you. I just
CEO.
Thank you. I just wanted to send just a question to Liz O'Neill. If you believe there's any need to withdraw the motion that was on the table that wasn't voted on, or what's your suggestion on that? There was a motion that was made and properly seconded. So.
Somebody could move to withdraw the motion, but there was no action taken on it, so.
Okay. All right, I'll move along. I don't want to slow things down. I just want to make sure that we didn't create a problem for us later. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have two presentations that we're going to give, and then there's a series of upcoming meetings. I'm going to run through the meetings very quickly. I won't read the specific dates. It's all in your board package. But we do have several jurisdictional briefings that are scheduled going forward. We did just have the City of Atlanta one, so that's not on here because it just happened. Several MARTA board committee meetings that are all on your calendars. A Rider Advisory Council meeting April 7th. And the next work session which will be a month from now. So if anyone has any questions about any of those meetings, let me know. The next MAC meeting is the following month, so that meeting will appear on the agenda for the following meeting, just in case there's any question about that. We had a few people wondering about that meeting. So I would like to turn the floor over to Raj Srinath and Kevin Hurley to provide a presentation on the negotiated bond underwriting pool, RFQ, and plan of finance. So Raj, thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, other members of the board, and Mr. Parker. I'll discuss three bond-related issues or topics. The first one, if you go to the next slide, the first one is establishing a pool of underwriters for negotiated transactions. The second topic I will discuss is an upcoming mandatory tender of approximately $117 million of bonds that were issued in 2018. And the last one is anticipated bond issue for new money. Next slide, please. although MARTA Act permits the sale of bonds either on a negotiated or on a competitive basis, MARTA has historically issued bonds on a competitive basis. For certain types of transactions, in fact, competitive issuance is preferred, such as if it's a plain vanilla transaction or when there is no turmoil or disruption in the marketplace. Last year, we saw a great deal of turmoil in the marketplace, and the competitive market pretty much dried up in late March, early April, but the negotiated market was still functioning efficiently. Next slide, please. So during market disruptions or turmoil, negotiated sales can provide greater access to markets because underwriters will have more time to pre-market the bonds to investors. Also, negotiated sales give MARTA more flexibility, if you will, to structure the bonds or to incorporate some innovative types of financings. Again, the negotiated transactions can be used for either new money borrowings or for refinancing or fundings. Next slide, please. The goal is to establish a pool of 10 to 15 underwriters, including some DBE firms, minority and women-owned firms, and for a term of 3 years, 3 years of base, a term of 5 years, with 3 years base and 2 one-year options. And just because we establish a pool does not mean that all members of the pool will be used in a negotiated transaction. It could vary depending on the needs of the MARTA and the circumstances. You go to the next one. Oh, next one, please. Or the previous one. I think we missed one. We can move on. I'll just speak to what I have to say. So there is a timeline slide. I don't know if it comes after the next one or if we missed it. If you can go to the timeline slide for establishing that. Well, let me just speak to the timeline. This is just providing information to the board during the workshop, and we'll bring a formal action for the board for establishing a pool at the May 13th board meeting. So if we can move on, I'll discuss briefly the second topic. You keep moving. Next slide. And one after that.
Yeah, it appears that there's several slides that are not in the presentation for the second items.
Okay, I can certainly speak to that, but because there's no formal action required, I'll just speak.
Raj, may I make a suggestion? Because I think that it would be easy to get the presentation to Tyrene, and I could ask Luz to do her presentation now, or if you'd prefer to do it without your slides, I'm open to that as well.
I'm okay either way. I mean, it's as I said, this is an informational item. I can just speak to that. It's a pretty simple piece of information.
Keep going.
Yeah, the second item I want to discuss is what's called the mandatory tender that's coming up at the end of June. These are on bonds that were issued in 2018. They were issued as variable rate bonds for a term of 3 years. So which means they're due for a mandatory tender. All that means is we have to refinance them. And the refinancing has to be done by July 1. We will bring to the board a formal action for board's approval at the May 13th board meeting on that. And the last item, actually, it's a little bit of a non-issue. It was about anticipated bond issuance. Due to some of the recent developments, more specifically the third Stimulus Act legislation that was passed by Congress yesterday, which the president is expected to sign tomorrow, we do not anticipate any new money issuance for projects this calendar year. And if things change materially, we'll bring that item back to the board sometime later this fall. So apologize for the little bit of a on the presentations, and that concludes my discussion on the three topics. I'll be happy to answer any questions on them.
Any, Madam Chair, are there any questions for the finance team?
Madam Chair, this is.
Yes, Mr.
So it's my understanding, okay. It's my understanding, Raj, that you're saying that this current stimulus package that's coming through, there is no money that's being dedicated for transportation in a broader sense for MARTA or the organizations. Is that right?
Actually, there is the proposed legislation includes about $285 million approximately for MARTA. So that is the reason, we were planning on issuing new bonds for projects later this fall. Because if this new money is coming our way, there is no need to issue any debt.
Okay. All right. So you're saying that with the stimulus money, if it is approved, we will not have to issue any new debts for the fall and go from that point.
That is correct.
Okay.
Are there any other questions regarding the presentation?
Madam Chair, this is Chris Tomlinson.
Yes, Mr. Tomlinson.
I want to follow up on that last point. So Raj, with the very favorable interest rates, I understand what you're saying. I just want to make sure that MARTA has looked at whether it had any new capital needs since you said to the end of the year. I know we're at sort of some historic lows, so just want to make sure we're not missing any opportunities to get access to new money at cheap rates.
That's an excellent question. We have looked at that. In fact, there are two things we're doing. It's not part of the agenda as well, but I'll briefly mention that. We are planning on having what's called a commercial paper program facility, just to take advantage of the things you mentioned. If there are some needs, but the timeline is not firmed up yet, there is no need to issue long-term bonds. We suffer what's called negative arbitrage, if you will. You don't want to pay interest for money you have no use for. So setting up a commercial paper program will give us exactly the flexibility that you talked about. It's pretty nimble. You borrow money only when needed in amounts that you need, and pay interest costs only for such amount. So that's what we're planning and doing. We'll bring that action to the board sometime in summer.
Okay, thank you. Seems to make a lot of sense. I know the commercial paper can run higher than bonds, but you're absolutely right about the flexibility and certainly not wanting to risk negative arbitrage on bonds. So thank you.
Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions regarding the presentation? I do not hear any other questions, Mr. Parker.
All right. So I'll continue. We did want to provide a short update on our COVID-19 vaccination plan. Luz will step us through the activities that we've been undertaking to focus mainly on how we're trying to encourage our employees to get access to the vaccine under the system that the state has set up, and Luz will step us through that, including some very recent changes that the governor implemented. So Luz, take it away.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair Scott, members of the board, Mr. Parker, colleagues, and members of the public. My name is Luz Borrero. I'm the Chief Administration for MARTA. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a brief update on MARTA's COVID-19 and our vaccination efforts. Next slide, please. 13.9% of our employees have been directly impacted by COVID-19 over the course of this year. And unfortunately, 3 of them have died in this process. Over 55% of our employees live in our service area, DeKalb County, Clayton County, and Fulton County in the city of Atlanta. Approximately 9% of the adults living in this service area have been directly impacted by COVID-19. Next slide, please. MARTA's weekly COVID-19 diagnosed cases have paralleled those of our service area, as you can see in this graph. Most notably, the peak and subsequent decline of our cases in January 2021 very much mirror those of the service area. The good news is, as you can see in this graphic, that we have been experiencing for the last 2 months a significant decrease in the number of COVID-19 diagnosed cases, with less than a handful so far in the month of March. Next slide, please. Out of the 354 employees impacted over the last 5 months, approximately 58% have been successfully returning to work, with about 38% remaining at home and 3% under medical care. To note, is important that we understand that those that remain at home, most of them have experienced little to no symptoms, and most of them remain at home because they must meet the quarantine recommended time off. Next slide, please. So where are MARTA employees on the vaccine priority list? As you know, the CDC and the Georgia Department of Public Health have issued guidance for eligibility to obtain the COVID-19 vaccine. There are 4 phases, each with different eligibility criteria. Currently, as you know, we are in phase 1A. This phase covers medical personnel, first responders, police, and persons 65 years and older are eligible. Just most recently, phase 1A plus was expanded, and Governor Kemp announced that this phase will encompass teachers and those who are 55 and older. We are readying ourselves for eligibility under phase 1B. So that covers bus and rail operators, as well as our station personnel, mechanics, track maintainers, and other MARTA employees. Next slide, please.
I apologize. We had an issue with the slides. We need to switch the presentation. Just give us 30 seconds. We'll bring it back up to this slide, but there was an error on the system. I apologize. We'll return to the original slide. I apologize for the interruption.
Thank you, Kirk. We're on slide 6. Thank you. Next slide, please. So our general manager has been in conversations with officials from the state of Georgia and the Department of Public Health regarding the preparation steps we're taking for vaccinating our employees. In early January, MARTA implemented a voluntary registration list so to encourage our employees to begin expressing their interest in becoming vaccinated. About 22% of our employees have expressed an interest in receiving the vaccine, and approximately 51% of those are frontline employees. This list is being managed by the HR department, and it has been prioritized to ensure that employees with the highest level of exposure will have the opportunity to get the vaccine first. Next slide, please. So who has been vaccinated thus far? About 25% of our police department employees have already been vaccinated. In addition, 54 of our employees who are 65 and older have also been vaccinated. Important for you to note is that these are those who have notified us that they have received the vaccine. We are aware of the fact that many employees have already been vaccinated that are not being tracked through this process. So we might have a slightly higher percentage of employees vaccinated than what is being represented here. Now that the eligibility criteria are expanded, we intend to refer more of the 55 and older employees to Fulton County for beginning their vaccinations. Next slide, please. So we are very much interested in responding and assisting our employees with information and education about the vaccines. Some of the reasons that a few employees have cited about their misgivings on receiving the vaccine include that they're concerned about the fact that the vaccine must have been rushed in their development. Some female employees have expressed concerns about the potential impacts of the vaccine on fertility. And some have expressed questions about whether or not all the variants are being covered. We are very much interested in effectively addressing these concerns. And to that end, we have not only begun putting together information, but also develop a collaboration that we believe will give us the expertise to be able to help employees answer these questions from people who are in the medical profession and who are scientists who know and understand these. We have been successfully discussing this opportunity with the Morehouse School of Medicine, and they have agreed to provide two doctors to assist us in a town hall meeting, which is scheduled for March 24, precisely designed to address the questions that many of our employees are formulating. So Dr. Lily Immergluck and Dr. Tabia Akintobi will be present at this town hall meeting to answer the questions from our employees. We are also very much interested in having a continued process of information and education, and the Morehouse School of Medicine has expressed an interest in assisting us in that regard. Next slide, please. We are also in conversation with other organizations to assist in the vaccination process, in the expansion of sites for vaccination. One of those conversations is a collaboration with Delta. Delta is planning to establish what they call a mega site. This mega site is to be established at the Delta Flight Museum, which is located 2 miles away from the College Park station. Our agreement so far under discussion is that we will provide a round-trip shuttle service to and from the station to facilitate access to MARTA riders who would need transportation for being vaccinated at the Delta Flight Museum. Next slide, please. We'd also engage in a partnership with DeKalb County and the DeKalb County Board of Health. Our partnership began with the establishment of the vaccination site at the Dorville MARTA station. Vaccinations there began on February 1st. They are administering up to 300 vaccines every day. We are now in the process of expanding this agreement for the DeKalb County Board of Health to utilize the Indian Creek MARTA station as a vaccination site beginning the last week of March. And we're very, very much excited about this opportunity. Next slide, please. And finally, I wanted to address the work that we're doing in conjunction with our health insurance partners. Both our partners, Kaiser Permanente, as well as Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, have established websites that are specifically designed to answer questions and to educate employees about the vaccines. They also are now providing continued information and educational materials which we distribute to our employees. Anthem is now implementing a series of information and information distribution events at every one of our rail stations. This is a program that will begin in April and will run all the way through the month of June. So this concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions. So I'm turning this to you back, Mr. Parker.
Mr. Parker?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I just turned it back to you, Madam Chair, to see if there are any comments or questions about what we're doing to, I think most importantly, encourage our employees to get access to the vaccine in an appropriate way, and also to support efforts sort of around the region in terms of making the vaccine available to the general public. So.
Thank you.
Chair, any questions?
Yes. Do we have any questions for Ms. Moreno? Hope I didn't butcher that name. I have a question. I know on the slide it says that 64 of the employees over 65 have been vaccinated. How do you have a total of how many employees are over 65?
Yes, ma'am. A little bit over 100 employees are over 65. And as I mentioned, this number only represents those that have been vaccinated through our corporate efforts. But others who are older than 65 have also been vaccinated. That we're very much aware of that. They're just not part of the organized program that we have going on with the Fulton County Board of Health.
Luz, didn't we do some specific outreach to those employees who were over 65 when that group was authorized to get the vaccine, so that they were aware of it?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
We very much made that effort, and everybody who wanted to sign up did so. And we immediately began referring them for vaccination, and that occurred over the last couple of weekends in the month of February.
Okay, and if I may, I have another question. The town hall meeting, which will include Morehouse School of Medicine, is that a virtual meeting?
Yes, ma'am, it's an
Pretty
online
sure it is.
meeting.
And with that meeting, all employees will receive information on how to participate.
Yes, we are inviting all of our employees to participate, and we are soliciting their questions, and will be also live answering questions. Dr. Imer Gluck and Akin Toby have agreed to answer their questions directly during the meeting.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Liz? Luz, I'm sorry, Liz, Luz, I meant Luz.
Thank you. Yes.
Miss Previous DeKalb County.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Ash.
Ms. Barrero, thank you for this briefing, and I'll confess that I was the one who asked for this to be put on the agenda. I think all of us who are employers are going to be faced with the decision at some point, not immediately, but at some eminent point, particularly with the news that vaccine availability is ahead of schedule or will be ahead of schedule, such that the current federal expectation is enough available doses for every adult by the end of May. It is my sincere hope that all of my law firm's employees choose to get vaccinated when they are eligible to be vaccinated. As an employer, we will have to make a decision about what we're going to do if there are people who refuse to get vaccinated. That answer might be different for people who work in an office tower than it is for people who are frontline public-facing employees. I don't know. I don't know what our answer to that will be. I'm not asking this board to discuss that issue now or even for a reaction from our C-suite. It certainly is my hope and my expectation that we will continue to do exactly what you're doing, which is finding ways to encourage people to take advantage of this opportunity. Recognizing, well, I at least want to flag for my colleagues that if we get to a point where voluntary compliance is insufficient, this may require additional thought. And I'll leave it at that.
Madam Chair, this is Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Worthy. Go ahead.
I want to echo Mr. Ash's comments and express my same concern. Obviously, we can't consider mandatory vaccines until the COVID-19 vaccine is moved from emergency use approval to a standard FDA approval, which, could be over a year from now. But I think that it's smart to go ahead and have those discussions. I don't even know what the authority's flu vaccine policy is. But certainly bus and rail operators, and that will involve unions, that will involve everything. But I think that it's probably a good idea to start thinking about that early rather than having to have those conversations, after this meets the second level of approval.
And I'd like to add to that. I think that I think the town hall meeting will be of great access because it will answer. There will be an opportunity for those that are apprehensive to ask questions and receive answers that I am sure will influence the employees that choose to be vaccinated. And at this time, one of just hearing from various elected officials throughout the state and the congressional leaders, some of the big issues that have been concerning, it may not concern MARTA employees, because I'm sure most of them are computer savvy, but the ability to actually schedule appointments have been an issue. So I think it's going to be great that MARTA itself will be available, will have access to the employees for their availability to receive the vaccine. I think that will help. After all, Georgia, we're 49th in administering the vaccine. So as much as we've done in the past couple of months, we still were behind in actually scheduling vaccines. So I expect these numbers will greatly increase just after your initiatives have been in place.
Yes, Madam Chair, if I may, we believe our voluntary registration effort is moving forward fairly well. And as I indicated, just over 600 employees have already indicated that they are ready to receive the vaccine. Most of those are frontline employees, but we do recognize that some have concerns and have expressed questions about it. So we will continue a very, very deliberate effort to help educate them, to help inform them, and to bring experts here to address their questions. We recognize that we are transit experts and not medical experts. So we are bringing experts to address their questions so that we can bring a higher level of credibility to the process. So thank you.
Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions? Mr. Parker, there seems to be no other questions.
Thank you. Madam Chair, that concludes my report. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. At this time, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved, Jim Durrett, for the purposes of discussing real estate. Is that correct?
That's what it appears to be, Mr.
That's my
Durrett.
motion.
Yes, it is. That's correct.
Second, Stacy Blakely.
Thank you. Anyone opposed? So done. Okay, it looks like we've all been able to return from the executive session. Are there any other matters to come before the work session? Are there any other matters to come before the session? Hearing none, the work session has ended. At this time, we will call to order the March 11th, 2021 Board of Directors meeting. Ms. Huff, would you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Roberta Abdul Salam. Robert Ash.
Present.
Stacy Blakely,
Present.
Jim Dorrit,
Present.
William Floyd,
Present.
Roderick Frierson,
Present.
Brian Glover,
Present.
Frida Hardage,
Present.
Russell McMurray, Al Pond,
Present.
Catherine Powers, Rita Scott,
Present.
Reginald Snyder,
Present.
Christopher Tomlinson,
Present.
Thomas Worthy.
Present.
Madam Chair, there are 12 board members present.
Thank you, Ms. Huff. At this time, are there any changes to the agenda for today's Board of Directors meeting? Hearing none. Ms. O'Neill, are there any public comments for today?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have two public comments. One was actually an anonymous comment regarding the unsheltered riding the system. And then a second comment was received from Ed Williams regarding restoration of service. And both of those comments will be forwarded to you.
Thank you. May I have a motion for the approval of the February 11th, 2021 Board of Directors minutes?
So
Madam
moved.
Chair, Rod Frierson, so moved.
Hardage seconds.
Are there anyone abstaining from the vote? And are there any no votes to approve the minutes? It's been properly moved in second, hearing no no's and no abstentions. The motion has passed. At this time, we will have our committee chair reports. External Relations Committee, Mr. Ash.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The External Relations Committee met on Thursday, February 18th, 2021, and approved the following resolution. A resolution authorizing the solicitation of proposals for the procurement of transit and digital advertising, FPP 48265. Madam Chair, I request approval of the resolution.
I'll second it, Jim Durrett.
The resolution has been moved and second. Is there any abstentions or no votes on the resolution? Are there any abstentions or no votes on the resolution? Hearing none, the resolution is approved.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee also received the following briefings: a briefing on the non-standard bus shelter process and a 2021 legislative update. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Ash. At this time, we will hear from Al Pond, the Planning and Capital Programs Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Planning and Capital Programs Committee met on Thursday, February the 25th, 2021, and approved the following resolutions. A, resolution authorizing the award of a contract for the procurement of bus lift remanufacturing and floor coverings, IFB B47090. Resolution B, authorizing the disposal of easements to DeKalb County for permanent and temporary easement rights for DeKalb County Sewer Project at 3923 and 3941 Dunham Park Road, Stone Mountain, DeKalb County, MARTA parcel 1202AD. Resolution C, resolution authorizing the sale of MARTA parcel C3219B, fee simple and permanent easement rights for GDOT for I-285 top end express lane at 6110 New Peachtree Road, Dorville, DeKalb County, Georgia. I request approval of these resolutions.
I'll second it, Jim Durrett.
It's been moved and second for the approval of those previously read resolutions. Are there any abstentions or no votes? Are there any abstentions or no votes? Hearing no abstentions or no votes, the resolutions are passed.
Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Pond. At this time, we will hear from the Operations and Safety Committee. Mr. Worthy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Operations and Safety Committee met on Thursday, February 25th, 2021, and approved the following resolution. A resolution authorizing the award of a contract for the procurement of mobility centralized scheduling and dispatching services, RFP P46865. I respectfully request approval of this resolution.
And I'll second it, Jim Durrett.
Those resolutions read have been moved in second. Are there any no votes or any abstentions from the vote? Are there any no votes or any abstentions from the vote? Hearing none, the resolution is approved.
The committee received the following briefings. B, briefing on mobility update. C, briefing on SMS implementation. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Worthy. At this time, we will hear from the Business Management Committee. Mr. Fryson.
Madam Chair, the Business Management Committee met on Thursday, February 25th, and approved the following resolutions. Resolution authorizing the award of a contract for procurement of online benefit enrollment administration services. RFP P43924.
Excuse me, Mr. Fryson. Ms. Abdul Salam, are you on mute? Go ahead, Mr. Fryson.
B, resolution authorization in contractual authorization for leasing and various Microsoft products, P45841. A resolution authorizing the placement of excess workers' compensation insurance for policy period April 1st, 2021 through April 1st, 2022. I request approval of these resolutions.
I'll second the motion, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Durrett. The motion for the resolutions have been moved and second. Are there any no votes or any abstentions from the board? Are there any no votes or any abstentions from the board? Hearing none, the resolutions have been approved.
The committee received FY 2021 second quarter financial highlights and financial key performance indicators. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. On the agenda, I would like to read the following resolutions that were presented to the board. A resolution authorizing the submittal of a purchase offer and settlement for the property acquisition of 5265 Old Dixie Road, MARTA parcel B097B within the city of Forest Park, and for the Clayton County Multi-Purpose Operation and Maintenance Facility, large parcel. May I have a approval of the motion?
Al Pond, move for approval.
Jim Durrett will second it.
Is there any member of the board abstaining or voting no on the proposal and the resolution?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm not voting no, nor am I abstaining, but I was going to ask for an opportunity to acknowledge that this is a conversation, this is a culmination and a milestone in a conversation that goes back 6-7 years at this point. And for those folks who weren't on the board back in 2013 and 2014, when we negotiated and ultimately were able to persuade the Clayton County Commission to exercise the right given to them by the Georgia General Assembly to revisit their decades-old rejection of MARTA and put that question before the voters. That discussion and negotiation was a contentious one that involved the Clayton County Commission first offering to join the system at a half penny level rather than a full penny level. And this board unanimously voting to reject that offer, which was certainly controversial and not without risk at the time we did it. The campaign ultimately involved both those of us who were on the board at the time and those of us who joined the board subsequently. In other words, Representative Abdul Salam. But it also involved the personal action of the mayor, the then mayor of the city of Atlanta at the time. And I remember the discussion about the siting of this facility and the need for this facility, the need for substantial capital investment by MARTA in Clayton County as being an important part of that discussion. So I just didn't want to I didn't want to miss the opportunity to acknowledge the better part of a decade worth of work that got us to where we are today, and the various people who played a role in that. Thank you for indulging me in that reminiscence.
Thank you, Mr. Ash. Mr. Ash stated that his comments were not in abstention or no. I haven't heard any other abstentions or no votes. The resolution has passed. Also, resolution authorizing the submittal of a purchase offer and settlement for the acquisition of property at 5163 Old Dixie Road, MARTA parcel B097A, City of Forest Park, for the Clayton County Multi-Purpose Operations and Maintenance Facility regarding small parcel. May I ask for approval of the motion?
I'll move approval, Jim.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair, this is Rod Frierson. I second.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Is there any member abstaining or voting no on this proposal resolution? Is there any comment, Mr. Ash?
Ditto.
We will take Mr. Ash's comments to be for B097A as well as the B097B. Hearing no votes or abstentions, the motion is approved. The resolution is approved. Are there any other matters to come before the board? Are there any other matters to come before the board? And so the board will know I repeat this twice because sometimes we have a little trouble getting off mute. I know I have. Hearing no other matters, are there any comments from the board other than the one we just heard?
Madam Chair, may I just thank staff who have advanced this these two procurements of parcels. It's a significant effort to get us to where we are, and I just want to thank the hard work of a large group of staff and consultants who have advanced this to this point. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parker, and I do appreciate the comments from Mr. Ash as well. I am a believer that what has transpired to bring any resolution into effect is very important. So with that being said, are there any other comments from the board? Hearing none, the MARTA Board of Directors meeting for March 11, 2021 is now adjourned. Everyone, have a good week.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.